So we're here today to talk about why Deacom exists as a company. Deacom provides software for batch and process-based manufacturing companies. And there's a big difference between what batch and process-based manufacturers need and discrete manufacturers need. So in the discrete world, you can take a basic system. You have AR, AP, GL, and basic inventory. For a typical discrete manufacturer making stuff like furniture or fairly simple products, this type of basic functionality will work for most people. So what happens is a lot of very large companies make systems that they want to be able to sell to everybody. So they make a basic system and then they allow third-party companies to bolt on to that functionality for that specific vertical market. In this case, batch and process is the vertical market. And they'll add some functionality to that, including formulation, QC, and document generation. We refer to this model as EE. That means this is how everyone else handles this product. The reason Deacom exists is that we're a little bit different. So the Deacom model, we handle all this functionality in one system. So we handle the AR, we handle the AP, we handle the GL, basic inventory, formulation, QC, and document generation in one system. So basically, Deacom is fighting an inherently simpler battle because of the fact that we don't have to bolt together functionality and we're specific to the batch and process industry. Our task is easier to get our customers the required functionality. So this actually starts to get a little more complicated because you say, okay, I've got this basic functionality. Now I actually need a WMS system because I want to take something. A WMS system is a warehouse management system, which is designed to manage the flow of inventory through your warehouse, through your production process. So the problem with this model is when I'm bolting on this third system, some of the information this WMS system takes is from the basic system. Some of the information is from this third-party bolt-on. So now I'm trying to bolt together three systems to provide the functionality that's needed. As you might have guessed from the Deacom model, we have our own WMS system. Again, this is just an inherently simpler battle. Because of the fact that that WMS system is living with the other functionality, it's significantly simpler. Now, about the last 5 or 10 years, this model on the left has gotten even a little more complicated in that all of a sudden, cell phones, iPhones, Android phones, iPads became popular, and people said, that's great, I want to be able to access this data when I'm not in the office or just through my mobile device. So there's a whole other piece that gets bolted on here. Again, go back to Deacom's model, we have our own mobile functionality because it just exists with all the other functionality. And interestingly enough, in the Deacom model, you actually get the mobile automatically. So if I create a view of data with a report in the system, I automatically can see that in my mobile. Whereas on the EE model, I need to take that, I may need to tunnel into this system. Some of that's going to come from the WMS system. Some of that's going to come from this system over here. It's an inherently more complex model trying to make that work. Now you get into some very specific functionality that companies need. So when you're in the batch and process industry, let's say one of your customers comes to you and they say, okay, we're going to buy the same product from you that you make for other people, but for us, we want this to be a little more specific. So let's say you have a product you make that has, say, a pH range that can be anywhere from 8.5 to 9. For a typical company, that's an acceptable range. If you get a customer that says, no, that for me, that's not acceptable. I want to have a pH from 8.7 to 9 because our use of that product is a little bit different, so we need to be a little tighter standard. So the problem is if you're going to try to set that up in this model over here, some of that data is coming from the AR system, the build-to file. So I need to set that up as a customer-specific thing. Some of it's coming from the item master file, which is part of the basic inventory. And some of that's coming from the QC and potentially the formulation. So the formulation would be what this product is supposed to be. The QC is what it actually is. So trying to tie that functionality across these three systems can be very challenging in this model. Oftentimes what happens is you can get close with that model, but to the extent you can't do everything a company needs, you end up with some sort of workaround. So the problem when you get to the workarounds is that I'm trying to create process control where I'm about 1,000, where I handle every situation exactly the same, and it's fully automated, meaning the people on the plant floor don't have to think about it. So to the extent that I have these unique requests from our customers, it may be challenging for me to set up that process control. I may have to resort to Excel, I may have to resort to some sort of customization, and I may have to have a manual process, which is very challenging to get that true process control. In Deacom, we handle that scenario where we have customer-specific QC in our single system. All this data resides in one spot, our WMS knows about it. It can actually pick automatically the right lot for the right customer, given that requirement and that setup that's in this single system. Another example, it's similar, it's a little bit different, but it's a similar concept, is a lot of our customers require different documents for the same product for different customers. So let's say you have a document such as a C of A document, a certificate of analysis, and one customer requires you to format that document differently than another customer. Again, when we get back to this model, this is going to manifest itself at the time I'm shipping a product, which would probably be controlled by the WMS system. The data is going to come from the bill to company, the item master file, and also this document generation. Again, I'm crossing over 3 systems at this point. Makes it inherently more complicated to do that over here. In Deacom, again, this is a much simpler process because all this data resides in the same system. So it makes it easier for us to deliver that functionality without having to resort to customization, workaround, or Excel files. So in the Deacom model, when we get an implementation, if somebody has a request that we don't handle, we can change the system to handle it, but we're only changing it in one system. In this model on the left, I might have to change that in as many as 3 or 4 different systems to deliver that functionality. It can be done, but it's a very challenging process, tends to be more expensive, tends to be slower, tends to get in the way of company growth. So that's what Deacom is doing, is by delivering an inherently simpler model, we are allowing our customers to evolve and grow faster. That's why Deacom exists.